So the article number 1 is about internationalization, the word that gives me so many problems, and 5 steps to prepare a mobile game for localization. So this article is from our favorite Nimdzi.com. And yeah, it seems it's specifically about game localization, but I think it could be also generalized into software. So let's see what I can say about it. Unlocalized image text, truncations, grammar issues. In modern mobile game localization, are such issues now relics of the past? Unfortunately, no. Still, to this day, it is not uncommon to install an app onto your phone that supposedly supports 20 or more languages, only to find the same old localization issues that have been irritating users around the world for over a decade. These may happen because of developers new to the industry who don't necessarily have enough experience in polishing their products for a global audience. That's very likely, especially if we are talking about mobile games, where there are like a lot of new indie studios and people who are just trying to make some whatever shitty mobile game. Simple inattentiveness, non-native and non-dedicated localization teams. Again, that's pretty normal if you are like an indie developer, that you won't have anyone who knows anything or is even fully dedicated to localization. Bureaucratic issues and time and budget constraints. The list goes on. Localization fails can occur at any company and for many reasons. No one is exempt from them, be it a big game development studio, an indie team, or localization manager from a language service provider. But regardless of where in the supply chain you sit, it's never too late to learn to do better next time. Let's discuss 5 key steps to start planning the successful localization of your game. Number 1 is internationalization. So although I thought that this whole article will be about internationalization, it seems that it's just the first key step. Of course, everything starts with internationalization. So internationalization, abbreviated as I-18N, is a process of preparing sources in a way that allows a game or any other digital localizable product to function globally. The task of internationalization is to ensure that the product design will meet the needs of users in different countries and adapt easily to localization. I think this is a very good and very simple explanation of what this term means. I came across like many other explanations about what internationalization means. And most of them were like very awkward, but confusing or like too complex. This seems to be like very simple and very straightforward. However, not all developers are aware of the usual internationalization requirements, which are better taken into account at the early stages of the game development process. Ignorance of these requirements may lead to serious problems during localization, adversely affecting the game cost, quality, and time to market. Internationalization is a hot topic addressed not only in couloirs. There's an internationalization special interest group at Gala Association. It features monthly online meetings during which internationalization issues and life hacks are discussed. There are technology solutions available that help find and fix internationalization bugs. For example, Globalizer, and that's with Globalizer with Y, not I, by Linkoport, detects bugs from within integrated development environments, check-in, pull requests, or daily runs against your repositories. The earlier you find a defect, the less you lose on fixing it. So here we have a nice chart which shows how many defects are introduced at which phase, and what is the cost to repair them. Wait, I'm a little bit confused here because there are two. Oh, sorry. Sorry, now I get it. So there are 3 lines here. One of them is when the defects are introduced, in which phase, then defects when they are found, in which phase, and then there's the cost. So most of the, up to 85% of defects are introduced during the coding stage. And then we have the following stages, which are unit testing, function testing, field testing, and post-release. So of course, the further you are in the dev cycle, the higher the cost will be to fix the issue when you discover it. In order to find internationalization defects, you need to know what to look for. We compiled a list of basic aspects to consider based on the materials of the GALA's Internationalization Special Interest Group, Lingoport, and Ekaterina Zaitseva, the lead localization manager at RJ Games. So here we have, the next is a table which lists the basic aspects to consider. It's pretty long, but I'll try to cover it somehow. So number 1 step to consider is no hard coding. Avoiding hard coding or embedding text in any graphic files as much as possible reduces the cost of localization. Character and numeric constants, screen location coordinates, file names, file path names should not be hard coded. They are different for each region. Number 2. Enough space is reserved for the menus and dialog boxes. When translated from English, the text takes up more space in many languages, so it's important to reserve enough space in advance to avoid truncations and hardly manageable character limits. Number 3. Concatenations. Sentence structure plays a key role in localization, and concatenation should be refactored to use insertion points prior to the strings being externalized. Number 4. Variables and placeholders. Having a description inside the variable placeholder on what will be rendered there helps to move the words around without interfering with the variable values. For example, take, then there's a variable discount amount, % off when you buy, another variable purchase amount, or more. I guess this must be confusing for those of you who are listening to the podcast, but it's just 2 variables in a string. Variables need to be used in no more than 1 context so that they are not subject to automatic out-of-context reuse. Plurals. Plural formation results in different forms of the words. Not all plural formation is as simple as adding an S as in English. For example, for 1 string in English, we may need several strings in other languages. That's true, that's the same for Czech and Slovak, I think. 1 for a singular string, 1 for a plural string, 2 or more, and 1 if XYZ is a 0, because in some languages that is expressed differently. That's true. Providing different versions for the words few, many, plural, other may be required as well. Number 6, gender. Providing information, for example in metadata, on gender and human, non-human nature of the objects helps to avoid declension problems. Number 7, normalization of source. Creating a normalized source version, that means eliminating misspellings, jargon, uncommon abbreviations, etc. for translation rather than fixing the translations helps to avoid negative effects on TMS. Mirroring the interface, right to left languages including Arabic and Hebrew require mirroring of all interface elements. Number 9, fonts and special symbols. Testing of every font for every planned language, including font size, and paying attention to special characters such as umlauts is advisable. Number 10, encoding. Unicode should be supported. For the Chinese market, the app should support a standard that is not fully compatible with Unicode. Read more about GB 18030. Number 11, support scripts other than the Latin alphabet. Users should be able to center characters in their language, for example, spell their names into dialect boxes. Number 12, text display peculiarities, wrapping vertical text. Word wrap rules are taken into account for different locales. Vertical text and text breakdown used in Asian languages should be supported. Number 13, colors. Paying attention to colors to take into account cross-culture aspects. Number 14, quotation marks. Sometimes the usage of additional quotes may lead to breaking the source file. Using of &quote, so that's the HTML entity, or chevron quotes may be a solution. Number 15, geolocation. Geodata automatically inserted into translated UIs may not always be localized already. This should be checked. Number 16, time and date. Currency numbers. Creating text strings with variables for time and date, currency numbers is helpful. This approach proves that the game cares about the customers beyond its home borders. Number 17, the final one, download and upload test. Localization resources can be downloaded in a single established format. Resulting source files contain all text for localization. This eliminates the possibility of incomplete localization. And there we have it. There was the number 1, which is all about internationalization. And I think I could actually even stop the article here because I wanted to focus it fully on internationalization. But anyway, let's continue with the other steps. So step number 2 is communication and collaboration. With all the internationalization steps to check, localization is being increasingly integrated upstream into the development process. This probably won't come as much of a surprise, but the ground zero step in any game, internationalization and localization efforts needs to be communication. Oh, okay. To start a conversation, a localization team may share the way globalizer detects issues in the code with the development team. Though every app and mobile game is unique in its requirements, this description discusses the rule sets, and there's just a link to the description. They are the foundation of how the issues are found. It can serve as an illustration of what to look for and is written in a language software teams understand. Step number 3, CAD tools, QA, and test planning. If the steps taken don't prevent all possible localization issues, the careful selection of CAD and QA tools can help to correct any that have popped up. Pseudo-localization. A handy approach is to run pseudo-localization for testing of the app, though it's less efficient than fighting an internationalization bug as code is written. Even machine translation helps to get a view of the localized product. Both MT and pseudo-localization might lead to proactive design changes and can be utilized via CAD tools. So pseudo-localization, for those of you that don't know, basically means, I think it's like a randomly generated extended characters that are put in instead of source text, or maybe sometimes characters are added or they are shorter, so it kind of looks like the source text was translated into some language with extended characters. CAD tools for games. Among game translators, popular CAD tools are MemoQ, MemSource, Throttle Studio SmartCat, SmartLink, and WordBee. QA best practices. When a language vendor delivers their finished product, one can apply industry standard practices such as third-party review of a sample translation and extensive QA metrics, or at least compare two variants of translation via tools such as Change Tracker or TQ Auditor. It also makes sense to run an in-house check of the localized bilingual file prior to importing it back into the game build. QA built-in CAT tools or Xbench and Verifica can help with that. Even without the time and budget for a full review, QA tools can help you know which translator works more attentively. Options for testing. Some game developers send packs of localized game user interface screenshots for the translation teams to verify. Then the error lists are filled in and sent back to be fixed. Others provide maximum context, allowing the translators to play the game and even give them special cheat codes to facilitate the gameplay process. The information on game logic helps localization teams a lot, even if full-scale linguistic testing is planned as well. If you can ask the development team to leave notes for text strings, you should do so. The more information available, the better. Okay, step number 4, and then we have one more. Legal preparation and documentation. The level of translator involvement is not the only thing to verify with the legal team. Early collaboration with the legal department, establishing vendor contracts will streamline future localization efforts for you and your vendor. Accordingly, the communication with vendors prior to the actual project start will help to calculate localization budgets. Don't forget to reserve an extra budget for unforeseen expenses. It might also be a good idea to check the legal restrictions with payment systems abroad. Number 5, the final step, feedback collection. Even if you don't have any text to localize yet, you still can benefit from collecting user feedback. One way to do this is to pay attention to the comments in app stores of similar games. While the errors aren't useful themselves, understanding their root cause may be. Checking the feedback for similar games should happen, if at all, very early in the process. No point doing it after you made a final decision about the fonts, says Lena Batova, a game translator and localizer. Another option is to make it easy for players to leave feedback within the game itself. It can be a simple feedback button or a fancy help widget. Make sure to discuss this with the development and design teams. And don't forget, thanking the players for their feedback adds a nice touch. Regardless of the amount of localizable text in the game, the 5 steps mentioned above typically give the best results when done in advance. It may seem a bit tricky to decide which step should be prioritized in your particular case, but the main idea is pretty obvious. The earlier you start, the less painful and more fruitful your game localization will be. So that was article number 1. And I think other than at the start, I think I was just reading, which I really hate to do. But actually I'm a little bit disappointed because based on the title of the article, I thought that it would be fully dedicated to internationalization, but there were like a lot of, all those, 17 things that you need to consider as part of internationalization. I think they were pretty good. Maybe I just didn't add much to it. And the other steps like after that, they were kind of like meh, because they were not talking about internationalization. The only thing that I'm kind of surprised with and happy about is that I was actually pretty good at saying the word internationalization, because I know I was struggling with that word before.